got it locked, Frank. Locking the phone.
Okay, I think we're recording now. Welcome to another episode of the Just a Couple Dudes Jacked podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Flatiger.
And I'm a co-host, Frank Lewandowski III.
And I'm another co-host, Brandon Lawrence.
So today, the subject is it's a pretty rough one. We're talking about death, dying, kind of grief, some topics that we've covered before with other guests, but we haven't specifically just sat down, just the host, and really went into these topics. And some stuff's kind of gone down over the last few weeks, whether it be some of my experiences, Frank's experiences, just even Brandon, like some things that we've seen. And so we decided to kind of speak to the subject. So, Brandon, if you kind of want to lead off.
Well, obviously we've got a lot of tragedy ongoing with the pandemic and just seeing just kind of unfortunate and unnecessary deaths ongoing. And then recently, I think more importantly, what triggered our conversation here is two events that the two of you guys went through. I think it'd be important just to touch on these kind of personal stories that has affected your guys' lives, and then we can kind of go into some of the generalized stories that we have about work and life in general.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, I can kind of lead off. I spoke to it in a Instagram post that I also posted to our YouTube for anyone who's listening and keeping up. But so yeah, I'm the dean of students at a Title I high school near downtown Phoenix, and if you work in education, you have students that come through your school, that come through all different grades and ages. They come and they go, and you hear sometimes the student's going to pass away, but typically they're not currently enrolled in the school as well. No matter what, it's just awful. But we actually had a student. We lost a student. He was only 16 years old. He was still enrolled in our school when it happened. He was about to start school the first day, and he was actually shot. There was a shooting, and all we've kind of found out is that it was just a random drive-by shooting. One of my good and close friends actually works that beat for Phoenix PD, and he was able to tell me that they think that there's been multiple of those types of shootings that they've seen, quite a few of them. And so he went to the hospital, and he wound up dying at the hospital. And I recently, a couple days ago, we went to his open wake. And it was just really rough, man. It's just kind of like when you first hear the news, you're kind of like, oh, wow, it's awful. It's shocking. And then, but when you see the body and you just see all, like, everyone that's affected, bunch of students were there. His mother was there. It was just really sad. It just always gives you kind of a shock, because you're just looking at someone so young. No matter what, when you pass, it's sad. But especially at 16, it's like, that's just too young, man. Like, I think about when I was 16, and it's awful. And so one of the really cool things is our school, a lot of the faculty came together, and we were able to get a lot of money put together for his funeral. He's actually going to be buried down in Mexico. He kind of just had a ceremony here in Phoenix, and then he's going to go because his dad had passed away in Mexico as well. So, but it was good. It was really cool to see people kind of rally around a really sad moment like that, but be able to come together. It's kind of like reminds me of another post I had put out on Instagram a few days ago. It was like in 2018, I think Americans had privately donated like $327 billion, and it just speaks to people really innately kind of do come together in these tragic situations to give. And that was kind of what happened, in like my personal experience the last 2 weeks, that kind of gave me some provocation on this topic.
I think it's just hard anytime you see death, let alone when you see a life taken so early, because that poor guy at 16 didn't even get to experience many of the joys of life. And I cannot imagine how that rippled down through his family. It'll be forever changed. So hopefully, I don't know what can be learned from it, but.
Hey, real fast, when you said there was other shootings like this, what did you mean? Like other kids, or like the manner in which he was shot?
Yeah. So what we've kind of heard is that in that same area of pocket of Phoenix, there's been a similar drive-by shootings in apartment complexes, that they're kind of linking. They're seeing a pattern of this type of shooting and this type of kind of a thing. So they're trying to link it, I guess. I don't know all the details, but it's just sad, man. I mean, in that specifically, I don't want to give away too much information, but that pocket of Phoenix, seems to have a lot of just awful shootings. And then, who are the people, who are the victims? 16-year-old kids, and, just trying to go to school, and he's just trying to walk to either leave or I don't know if he was coming or going, but he just gets shot randomly. It's just so unfair.
That sounds more like, Chicago, I guess, when you think of like the news or something, but that's happening everywhere. And again, a lot of that was just, when people say, it wasn't that kid's choice to live where he was at. He's 16, right? He was just in the place that where his parents were at, or parents or whatever. And he was probably just doing the best he could. And that was the result. So, I mean, there's not even a way you can really spin it positively at all. I mean, hopefully there's donations to his family and
There's
gun
no
violence
silver
is
lining
talked about.
there.
Yeah, it's just like horrendous. So I do have a good man segment though.
Eric,
Oh, sorry.
well, hold on. Eric, how many students are at your school?
Yeah, so we have, I think it was like 270 enrolled currently.
So how are the kids there? I mean, how are they handling it? This is a tragic event.
Yeah, man, it's kind of rough because we're all virtual. There's no kids at the school yet, so it's really hard when something like this happens. It's hard to have people rally, and typically maybe if something like this happened last school year, you'd be able to really come together as a group of people, and it's kind of hard because none of our kids are on campus. But a lot of the students, there was a good amount that were at this open casket, and I'll be honest, they didn't. I mean, they didn't seem to take it that well. There was a lot of just really sad. It was just really sad. It kind of reminded me actually when I was in high school, my senior year, one of our star football players, he actually was driving back to Phoenix from New Mexico and rolled their car, and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He died. I don't even think he was 18 yet. And it was like it reminded me of that. Just like you're just shocked. You're just a kid. You're a high school kid, and you just lose someone that you just can't believe they're gone. They're gone. That's done.
Yeah. And the problem with now being virtual is usually they send crisis screeners and stuff, to the schools and have these kind of conversations with the kids about grief and loss. And this is something that, probably the most of them have never experienced before. And now we're virtual. We're not in the same area. Like if they do that logistically, it's going to be difficult to talk to each kid individually instead of having group conversations and then identifying who needs the help and then talk to them one-on-one. So I feel for these kids, man. They're probably not getting the resources they need at this point.
Yeah, and I mean the head of our social workers and school counselors and whatnot, and when we had contacted him, of course that's what we try to do. That's what we would do. We'd try to, kind of go district wide and rally all the people that are trained to help, but we're all virtual, and so that's kind of another reason why it's really unfortunate, the way things are right now for that reason, at least.
All right, Frank, let's do the good man segment.
My bad. I didn't mean to cut in. I was like, I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Got just a note. We have a really bad delay for me. I got about a 3 or 4 second delay. So anytime we're cutting each other off, just bear with us, listeners.
I like the preface. So our good man segment is actually a 6-year-old boy, but he's probably more man than most men, I would say. So this heroic boy recently became famous because he saved his little sister, a 4-year-old. His name is Bridger Walker from Wyoming, and a German Shepherd mix barreled toward them and was going to attack the sister, and he jumped in, saving his sister, requiring 115 stitches with quite a bit of damage to his face. I mean, he's going to definitely have scarring. It looks very healed, by the way. But I mean, just looking at the initial trauma post stitches, I mean, it's just unbelievable this kid did this, and then he cited like some superheroes, which she is a superhero, right? So, I mean, what created this heroic like behavior from him? I don't know. Like, it's just amazing to see that there's hope.
Yeah, like where did he learn that from,
It's incredible. And if you read up on him, he literally said something to the effect, and I'm not quoting verbatim, but that he would rather have died before his 4-year-old sister. And that's, to me, incredibly, I don't even know the term for this, but precocious, I guess, for a 6-year-old to even have that mindset of protecting a 4-year-old, putting his life in on the line instead of hers. Like, that's insane. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, where did he learn that concept? You know, like, was it from his parents or was it from a movie? I don't know, but I mean, I just think that that's kind of speaks to the innate goodness that we kind of have in us, and someone as young as him has that innocence, you know, and I don't know, it's just crazy. That's when you got, I didn't even know that story until you guys had told me about
Yeah,
it. I
you
was
got
like,
to Google the
wow,
picture. I wanted to bring up something as well. So there's actually a picture of him in a Spider-Man jacket, and all the Avengers actors and actresses reached out to him
wow.
and told him how awesome he was, like
Great
Chris
quote.
Pratt, Robert Downey Jr. There is a famous quote from Spider-Man, because I'm quite the nerd, is with great power comes great responsibility. And I know it's a comic book, but I mean, I think a lot of those characters aren't the worst, people to idolize as a kid. I don't know. I did when I was a kiddo, so maybe that was part of it.
There's a lot of good like archetypes in those stories. You know, they kind of like a lot of those stories, like comic books and superheroes. I mean, I think at least my interpretation is they're trying to teach us things. They're trying to like through storytelling. That's how we've always kind of learned these concepts of good and evil and morality and whatnot. So, yeah, this kid's definitely a hero, though.
Brandon or Eric, would you guys have any heroes you looked up to when you were a kid, maybe that you can think of, like maybe comic book type stuff that maybe?
I always like Batman.
I mean, it's funny. Go ahead.
I was I've always loved Batman, dude. I don't know why. I was just a huge Batman fan. I think I felt bad for him because his parents were like taken from him, even though he's like a billionaire, and then he was just like afraid of stuff, but then he conquered it. And I always thought I liked him too, just because people always made fun of him, said he wasn't a superhero, but he was. I mean, dude, he was a superhero. I mean, come on, he's the only one who knew how to like take out Superman. He carried kryptonite at his belt. You know what I mean? So I like Batman.
Brandon's a
I
little
was
older,
weird,
so
man.
who's?
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Fuck off. I was into more like sports icons instead. So like I idolized Charles Barkley, who is clearly a great role model for a 6 or 7-year-old boy. And my mom is sitting right here. She just said that I liked, for some reason, Frank Thomas, but I don't think I ever rooted for the White Sox. So I don't I don't really know where that came from. So I was more into
That was
kind of the
random.
sports athlete icons, and yeah, maybe the Ninja Turtles, I guess, would be another one. But other than that, yeah, I don't know.
Classic
More kind of
Brandon.
real people.
I like Charles Barkley,
You know,
which he's not he even said, I'm not a role model.
He literally said, "I'm not a role model." I drew a picture of Charles Barkley. It was a really awful drawing, and next to it, it said, "I'm not a," and it was RO model, because I didn't know he said role. I thought he said row model because I was like 7.
He's
So
always been transparent with that, though. My
it's fantastic.
my favorite character growing up, probably comic book, was also Batman, and the reason why was because all the adversity he faced. So he lost both his parents. He also the bad guys were always very dark. Like there was not like a happy bad guy. Even the Joker was very violent. And then also that he didn't have any super powers, right? He was a billionaire, but he had to live this very flamboyant life during the day, but then he still sacrificed for the greater good at night, with never receiving any praise, and if he received actually like the city not liked him. So I just love that no matter what, he had integrity.
yeah, man. And I mean, like
I
again, like
always, I mean, if I was to choose, damn delay.
I know. Just go ahead, Brandon.
I was gonna say, I mean, I was still into the comic books and stuff when I was a kid. I would say if I had to identify with one, it probably would have been Spider-Man as a kid, because I was, kind of smallish and a little on the nerdier side. So, I always appreciated that this was someone that was able to save the day and tell kind of funny jokes as he did it, and that was probably the guy I identified with a little bit more than the others.
Yeah, man. And if you think about all these superheroes, now that we're talking about it, I mean, Batman, death, lost his parents. Superman, lost his parents. Spider-Man lost his uncle. Like, I think that they put that into those stories for a reason. I think death is just so powerful. It just, it's so impactful, because I think it's really hard for people, even if you're, I mean, whether you're atheist, religious, whatever, it doesn't matter. Even if you believe in an afterlife, people still don't like the thought of not living. our brains really can't conceive it. It's kind of like thinking of infinity. You can't really conceive of infinity. It's the same thing. I mean, I feel like I believe in an afterlife or whatever, but I don't know. I don't want to die, like, so it's real impactful when someone dies because they're just not here anymore. Like the thought of them not ever being around again is just so peculiar.
That's
I just
particularly when it's someone in your age group, because that really kind of puts it in its perspective that, in another timeline that could have been you. And like you said, we don't know what happens for sure after we die. And we like to think that there's an afterlife or this kind of perfect place where you go, reunite with your friends and family, but who knows?
I wanted to bring up one more story because we're getting down the very serious, probably the biggest question we all have was when I was like 7 or 8, I actually had a suitcase and I threw rope in there and I threw peanut butter and I was pretending I was going to be Batman. Like the beauty of a child is that I don't know
Dude.
why I had peanut butter. The beauty of a child is that they have imagination. And I feel like my imagination has been more sparked recently with the projects I'm working with. And I think people forget to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a random thought.
Well, when you're a kid, like I said, that
We try to figure
innocence,
out where the peanut butter came from.
the peanut butter.
Just to eat, man. Like I'm pretty sure it was a rope and maybe like some socks or something. Like I was
Maybe it
7.
was sticky to make you climb or something.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't know.
know. Protein.
Yeah.
I know, man, but that's like the innocence of being a kid is like you dream and you can, you think you can be Batman, you could be whatever, and then you kind of get older. And I guess I get the whole we live in reality, you gotta have a job, but I think we stop kind of dreaming the same way you would dream as a kid, and that's what's kind of sad. And I also think that's how you can tie in like death, like when you die, you realize like, oh man, I don't know how much time I have. So if I'm just kicking rocks right now, I got to get a move on it. I got to do something with my life because this might be it. I don't know. Maybe next year is my last year. And so it kind of, at least for me, my perspective is like I see that or I see examples of people when they die. And I think like, man, maybe I should be that. I should tap into that inner innocence and child of mine and really dream and want to achieve those bigger goals. I mean, I still have a job. I live in reality. I get that too. But yeah, it's like anytime someone passes, it really just, it sits with me for at least a couple days because I just really think on it, you know. And I'm not the biggest like crier, I guess. I kind of take death in a weird way too. Like I'll get the information. Like when my student passed, a lot of people were, really upset, which makes sense. But when they told me, I was kind of like, wow, okay. But then I just kept thinking about it for like days and days. I was like, man, like this is nuts. Like, it just made me really appreciative too. Like to be able to call up a friend and have a good conversation, be able to come home to my fiance, give her a hug. Like those things become so much more meaningful when you have that concept of like, this thing is very temporary. It's that it doesn't last forever. I think a lot of people live their lives like they're going to live forever. It's like, when are you going to get a move on it?
This might be a good time to give a shout out to Tea Timer at the Reaper. That's a throwback from like I think it was one of their first 20 episodes,
Yeah, it was.
and how he deals with grief and death. And there's a few things I adapt because I recently lost a person I know. Again, I mean we're best friends, but I've known her for 13 years. It was very unexpected, and it's like made me very angry and agitated today because I found out yesterday. But it just makes me, every time I talk to a family member, I always end the phone call with love you because I don't know if that's the last time I'll see them. I know that now, like I don't have a ton of fear because I mean the worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to end. And Brandon and I for sure have seen a lot of death. I mean, he's seen a lot more than me with pediatric death and things like that. I think it just grounds you.
Yeah, and also I think it's important that people can delineate an ER work friend from like someone that you sat in an office cubicle with, right? Because these literally are more of like teammates and family. Like you're doing incredibly stressful things almost 100% of the time with them and spending, all these hours kind of debriefing on kind of, for lack of a better term, shitty stuff that you see.
Yeah.
and they literally, like, this is probably the equivalent of Frank's work mom at one point in his life. Like, it's, you literally get this close with some of these people that you kind of go to battle with. It's almost more like kind of a military family.
Yeah, I like that because in the emergency room especially, or the ICU, you see like the worst things in the world, and you get treated really bad, and you're constantly stressed. It's kind of like going through boot camp. You build these like really tight knit relationships that last forever. And like I said, I recently lost someone like a day ago that is died like 30 to 40 years too young, and was one of the most sweet people ever. Was very supportive of the podcast, very supportive of me. I knew her 13 years ago when I went to the fire academy and saw her again as a nurse, and she's the same person from day one. And I don't know, man, it really affected me today. I was very angry and agitated and sad. I kind of like drew some tears on my way home. But she is like the heart and soul of one of the hospitals I used to work at. And it was very unexpected. So it just, I don't know,
Yeah.
any time it can happen.
It does, man. And I won't name names. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but one of my best friends in the world growing up, very close to his family. I mean, I went to tons of family functions. I would consider his parents like great friends of mine too. His mom was diagnosed a couple years ago with breast cancer, and crazy turmoils with cancer. We thought she had beat it. She actually got a letter, that you're in remission and all that. And then things took a turn for the worst. I don't really know all the finer details of it, but they don't really matter for the story. It's just that, she wound up dying from the cancer very unexpectedly. It seemed almost out of nowhere. And it was just, I remember getting that phone call. I was at work. We actually deliver meals to all our kids' families, whoever signs up for Thanksgiving. So if any of our students don't have food or money for Thanksgiving dinner, we deliver them to them. So I'm getting ready to deliver meals, and my buddy just calls me crying that his mom passed, and she was very young. She's only in her 50s, and I'm thinking he's my age. He's actually a year younger than me. I'm like, man, if I lost my mom right now, like, holy shit, that would be awful. And it hit me like so hard. And the same time that his mom went through that, almost lost my mic. The same time his mom went through that, his dad was diagnosed with cancer, very intense, aggressive cancer. And he's been fighting it really hard for the last, I think, like 18 months. And the latest news that I got was that they found another cancerous tumor on his body. And they told him, like, hey, with the way your health is right now, and we did a biopsy, really chemo is not going to be effective. We could try it, but it's up to you. But if, we can make you comfortable for this next 2 to 4 weeks, who knows? It's just a crystal ball at this point. And then he called me again and told me that news. I'm like, man, I feel like I just had this conversation with you about your mom, and now we're having the same one, almost the same one about your dad too. And again, he's young, in his 50s, and these things they're just so unexpected. Like, you just can't predict it. And I think cancer is almost even, I don't know. I mean, it's not to say one death is weirder than the other, but cancer is so tricky, man, because it just, you can't tell, how people are doing, and you get mixed information. And I don't know, man, it's just been real heavy. So this has been a heavy week or two, personally for me
Well,
with
the problem with cancer is there's rarely a time where you feel relief, right?
mm,
So you get this, like, a lot of times terminal or like near terminal diagnosis, and sometimes there's treatment, sometimes there's chemo, and sometimes you get remission, right? But a lot of these cancers, you never know for decades if you're truly cured. So
mm,
it's like, and it can come back at any time. So I think that's why it's an incredibly weird, illness, and it's a terrible way to go, because I feel like you're never comfortable. And
yeah,
like,
because
I don't
with
even mean pain wise, I just
yep.
mean psychologically.
Yeah. With my buddy's mom, it was like that. We had this huge sigh of relief because we thought, oh, like, she's better. Like, I don't know. And if you're not in the medical world and I don't understand these things, all I can think of is, okay, you're giving me good news. I think you're okay. And then to just turn around and then 3 months later, you pass and die from it. I think that's almost one of the worst parts of it, is this roller coaster of emotions that you experience.
Yeah, we're gonna have another podcast in September. It's gonna be really good about prostate cancer. Me and Brandon are gonna do, but with a special guest. But I've lost a lot of family members to cancer. I lost my grandpa when I was 9. Prostate cancer, 72. My dad got cancer at 47. He's okay, prostate cancer. Two of his sisters died before 50 of breast and colon cancer. And then I went to a double casket funeral with my aunt and my grandma. So mom, daughter, and they died within a day of each other of different cancers. I mean, it's hard to put a pulse on cancer. It's hard to blame. I mean, you can be like, well, they smoked, or oh, they didn't exercise. And then you get a 40-year-old, like the guy from Spartacus that dies of pancreatic cancer. It's like, we don't have an answer as a medical professional. We're just like, and the treatments aren't good. It's a horrible diagnosis.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Frank. I lost 3 family members, I think, by the time I was 12 to lung cancer. Uncle, grandpa, and yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you process when you're 8 or 9 on the first one, but I mean, obviously when you're 12 and you see your grandpa kind of deteriorating, maybe I was a little bit older, but I mean, that's difficult to process. And just to correct, I think the Spartacus guy was leukemia. That doesn't really matter. Kind of looping back, Frank, when you heard about, what was her name? I'm sorry, the lady that passed away that you worked with.
Should I say her name? I don't mind. I was just curious. Like give her a shout out.
I don't see why not.
Oh, okay. So her name is Summer
so.
Paul. And like I said, it doesn't, anyone that would have died at that ER would have been sad. But what's so sad about her is just that she was the charge nurse, so the best leader of nurses in the entire Abrazo system. So I'm talking about quite a few nurses. I worked at all the hospitals, different floors. So she cared about the staff. She cared about the patients. She was so fun. She loved her family. She loved her grandkids. She loves her daughters. That just makes it so worse. And you talk about a young 50. I mean, I'm guessing her age. I don't know, but I mean, she appeared healthy last time I saw her, and then you just have something happen. And it's like, and then she was actually, treated at one of the hospitals she works at. I mean, it's traumatizing. I mean, and I love her. Like, it's just, I wasn't expecting that news.
Yeah, and it's kind of, when you process these things differently. Like Eric is probably a little bit more like me, where you just kind of have to sit and think about it for hours, days, kind of weeks. And I would say the most recent kind of tragic event we had was my wife Lauren's father just passing suddenly. I was actually away out of town at a friend's wedding. And when I got, Lauren was, busy chasing after our kiddo all weekend. And when we got back, we realized that we hadn't really heard from her dad. But that was pretty normal for him. He'd go up north and, send us like a text a few days later. Hey, did you guys miss me? Didn't hear from you guys. And so I actually brought her over here now just to so she can talk about this kind of just pretty awful tragedy that was about 2 years ago now. If you guys don't mind, I'll turn it over to her.
No, of course, we love Lauren.
Definitely.
Hi, guys. Oh, I thought I light. There we go.
Hey.
Hi.
I'm gonna turn it off.
So, hey. So, yeah, pretty crazy event in my life. So my dad actually had, he had, a slew of kind of health issues that
Nothing major though, just diabetes.
Well, he
High
had
blood pressure.
diabetes and he had a heart attack
Oh yeah, I forgot to be
a year
That's hard to
prior
say.
to
Never
his
mind.
death. But yeah, so he was on and off pretty, sick here and there, but like he would kind of, he got a little bit like, I don't know, rebellious towards the end with his health, where he would want, to eat some fast food.
He was an incredibly intelligent man and thought that he was smarter than his diagnoses.
Well, yes, he was so smart that, yeah, he almost overthought things too much. And so anyways, long story short, brilliant, amazing man and person in my life. But he ended up, we believe, what his actual diagnosis at the time of death was ketoacidosis. From diabetes. But what we think could have happened is that he kind of, got a little loopy and dosed himself with too much insulin maybe towards the end, and passed away, which haven't openly talked about it a lot. It's been really hard for me, and it was my first major loss. I'd been lucky enough in my life to have grandparents, great grandma still alive, like just everyone in my family. Knock on wood, it was my first kind of major situation that we went through as a family, so it was tough. And then shortly after that, my grandpa passed too, so it was just a couple months later. So it was kind of a snowball effect of grief there for our family. So it was tough. And I think the hardest part for us was that he, like Brandon had said, we thought he was probably up north, and I think he was even planning on going up north because he had a bag packed kind of by the front door.
And he had turned his air conditioning off.
He had turned his air conditioning off, which leads us to think that maybe he was even out the door for the weekend. And then this happened, but he had been there for, they think, at least 2 days, which for us is probably the hardest thing that I've had to wrap my head around. Is that, man, you feel like just the worst daughter to not know that your dad was sitting passed away in his apartment for 2 days. He and my mom were separated at the time. It was very recent that they had gotten separated, months, and they were planning on getting back together. And on their anniversary, they were going to have the talk, and they had both separately told me that they wanted to get back together. So it was kind of a crazy situation and a really, really traumatic one at that. The hardest part for me, even to this day, is that I didn't really get to say goodbye in any way, shape, or form when they found him, because I apologize how graphic it is, but when they found him, the air had been off and it was warm, and 2 days had gone by and his dog was in there with him, and they basically told the family it was best, they would suggest not seeing him in that condition. And then my dad, being kind of the proud man he was, great man he was, he wouldn't have wanted us to kind of see him like that. I know that about him. So I never really got to say goodbye to him. And I think for me, that was the hardest part.
And just feeling like there was something we could have done, knowing his medical problems, and that, like, we knew he had problems with his diabetes, and it just sat for a long time that none of us, texted him just to say hi for several days or called him or anything like that, until we kind of realized something was up.
In our defense, it was just this really weird, hectic weekend where Brandon was out of town, and I had, our daughter had scratched my cornea, and I had like a severe corneal abrasion on my eye.
Yeah.
So Brandon was out of town, and I couldn't even text him because I couldn't see my phone. I had like this massive, I was wearing like a makeshift eye patch and a contact Band-Aid. So it was just this weird weekend where I just was kind of
It's a perfect storm.
out of commission that weekend. So
sorry to hear about that, Lauren. How would you just describe your relationship with your dad?
My dad and I were very close. It probably wasn't the most traditional relationship between father and daughter, because
friends.
My dad very much, he was so smart and such like a brainiac, and he taught me so much of what I carried on. I am literally like the handyman of the house sometimes. He's very handy, but I'm just saying, if a lock's broken, I can fix it. I know how to do all the things. I can change a tire. Brandon does all the things I ask him to. That's no knock to him. But
do you hang the
my
farm
point
doors?
Is that he taught me how to stand up.
I did that. She's very, very self-sufficient, and I don't even want to say for a woman, because she's more self-sufficient than a lot of guys I know.
Yeah, my tires, I can change a tire, I can jump a car, like all the things I can do. But the point being is that my dad taught me all those things. Like, he was very much about setting me up for success for my life. But were we the type that said, I love you at every turn? And, no. That wasn't really our relationship. That really wasn't him. But he was a good man, and he gave us a good life. And so that being said, like, towards the end of his life, he definitely was struggling to find himself. I think that he maybe retired a little too early. He kind of didn't feel a strong sense of purpose in a lot of areas, and so I think he kind of just just was looking for things, and I know that he was looking for his new purpose, and so that was kind of hard to see him go through that. And he was very much the type of person that kind of isolated himself when he was going through things like that, if that makes sense. So instead of really reaching out, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like, I mean, it doesn't take away from any of the experience, but I like how you try to take an objective approach and just be like, what can we learn from this? What could I have done differently? I think the way you describe your dad, he sounds more traditional to that time period. You know, it reminds me of my grandparents. You know, a lot of times they work so hard and then they retire and they don't know what to do. Like they were never taught what to do after they retire. They weren't taught to do anything else. And it was, you know, a lot of them kind of like they do lose that purpose. You know, and then he had his marriage not in the best shape and stuff like that. So I think that makes it a little more sad, but then it makes you reflect on you guys. It's like, that's why, I don't know if that's what's changed maybe some of your passions and why you're doing so much for giving back and the way you raise your girls. I think that's a nice way to like turn this negative event into just some positive light.
Yeah, and I think that my last interaction with my dad was very positive. He was like, he wanted to start a restaurant with us. Like, he was an idea guy. Like, he loved to throw ideas out
He's
there.
definitely a tinkerer and like just wanted projects. And I think we both kind of honor him through our various activities and projects that we constantly have.
Brandon is
There's
such
so
an
many
idea
like
guy.
little traditions now that yeah, exactly. And there's so many little traditions now that I'm like, man, my dad would have loved this. Or like, we'll watch Star Wars or one of his, you know, favorites, and we'll be like, man, and I wish dad was here to like see this. Or, you know, so there are ways that these things carry on. And you're right, I definitely learned a lot from the way that everything kind of happened with him and unfolded, because I was very much in a spot of trying to make sure that my family was taken care of. And you can get so involved in your little bubble, you know, my immediate family, my kids and my husband, and you can get so in your little bubble that you forget to reach out. And I think that's really important right now, and especially in times of COVID, is that so many people are isolated right now. And I think if I could give any message right now, it would be all these people who are isolated, and elderly people who live by themselves, who don't want to be around people and normally are. Like, depression is going to really set in and become a huge issue,
I think that was
and
beautifully
mental
said.
health in general. And so, thank you. And so I really think that that's what I would love to push from all this, is just to keep an eye on the people that you know are by themselves right now, and continue to check in on them, and Zoom call them or drop things off at their door, whatever you can do to maintain that contact so you don't have that situation I had.
I actually, I did a hospice rotation during my nursing clinical, and the saddest thing I saw was not death, it was how lonely they were. And then I actually volunteered for the hospice company for a while, and it was just so sad to see how lonely they were. We're taught as nurses to like hold their hand, give them a hug. Now we can't do any of that. And you're just, you know, loneliness, especially in these nursing homes and stuff like that. I know that the answers to COVID are tough, but it's just, loneliness is a huge issue, and it's related to so many
That issue,
deaths and stuff.
I was gonna say, that issue is like 10-fold worse now with COVID. You can't have family visitors at all, and it's actually one of the reasons why me and a friend of mine developed this kind of medical device that we're bringing to market here. I think we're about 2 weeks out, so it's gonna hopefully allow end-of-life care stuff like you know, family visits and whatnot.
Yeah, that's actually a really good transition. Is that, I mean, Lauren, you talked about how you weren't able to see your dad kind of at that point. Brandon and I have been part of a lot of codes, and one of the main things we do, which is bring in the family. That is such a closing message, just showing that we gave everything we got. There's a lot of times that we know they're dead, we know they're gone, but we're going to work our butt off and make sure that that family gets that last, you know, 30-minute experience. And I think that really provides like a start in the grief process.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kind of end of life is glorified almost, maybe. That's probably not the right word in movies and TV shows where you see people do CPR and magically they take this big inhale and they sit up and they start talking to you again. Obviously it's not like that. You break their chest, you break their sternum, you inflict pain and damage on this human being you're trying to save. And sometimes it is these 85, 90-year-old little grandmas that it's not going to go well. And the way to kind of show that to a family member is for them to visualize kind of the almost brutality of what a code actually is.
Yeah, it's hard. I go back and forth on that moment of where the police officer said, you guys can see him if you want to, but I wouldn't suggest it. And there's this part of me that just is always like, I should have just bit it. I should have just like bit the bullet and gone in and looked at him and like seen him, just so that I could have that closure of like, you almost don't believe it's true until you see it, And so not having that, I mean, I'm still glad I made the choice I made, because I know my dad, I hear his voice in my head, like, I don't want you to see me like this. But it's really hard to sometimes I open my cell phone and I go to call him. Like, that's how unreal it is when you don't actually see that person at the end of their life. So it's really hard.
I think this is also a good transition when you brought up COVID, and that no matter what, and a lot of people like to be right or have their opinion or be on the side they want to be on, but no matter what death comes from COVID or any death, it's a sad death. And I think no matter what, like, it doesn't matter if they wore a mask, didn't wear a mask. It doesn't matter if they wore a seatbelt, didn't wear a seatbelt. If they took care of themselves, didn't take care of themselves, they still died. And at least recognize that and have the empathy. Because I've seen, me and Brandon talk about this, and Eric, like, there's a lot of lack of empathy on social media and with some of these things, and it's sad.
Yeah, the graphs that show kind of the amount of people that are over 65 or with X and Y comorbidities, like the amount of people that show these graphs say, oh, it's not that big of a deal because everyone that dies, almost everyone that dies has this and that, not really taking into account that still that's someone's grandma or grandpa that probably still had plenty of good years left and now isn't going to be able to see their great grandchild born. Like that's, yeah, there's a lack of empathy. Like, it doesn't matter if they had these comorbidities and years of maybe not taking care of themselves. It's still a human.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think it was Joseph Stalin said, one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. And that's kind of what this whole thing's turned into, is just us talking about numbers and statistics, and every single number and statistic is a human. At the end of the day, it's like, even when people say, well, it's only this or it's only that, or it doesn't matter. Like, these are just people, and every single number in that stat, someone was affected in like a very impactful way. And so, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, man. It's just really sad. And death is such a tragic thing. And I'm glad you brought up that, it can be glorified in movies, but it's not. I mean, death in real life is it's horrible. It's just death. It's brutal. People don't die with their eyes closed with music playing, there's some awful things that happen, and you don't get to have that moment where you hold them and give them a one last kiss and one last, a good one-liner. It's like, it's situations like the one you just experienced where you have a police officer telling you, I mean, you can if you want, but I suggest you don't. It's like, it's that bad, and that's what death really is.
It's funny that you say that, right? So my grandmother was probably the most dear to me human being growing up. My mom had me when she was 19. My dad moved to Michigan. So my grandmother had just a massive, massive role in raising me. She was just a wonderful human being. And then when I was, I want to say about 20, she was diagnosed with ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. Originally they thought she had like just torn her rotator cuff, and that's why her shoulders weren't working. She was an avid tennis player and suddenly just couldn't play anymore. And then all of a sudden it was her other shoulder. So then that's when kind of shit hit the fan and they realized what was going on. And it was a pretty rapid deterioration from there, from like the kind of robust woman that I knew growing up. And she remained positive throughout. Everything was fine. Everything was, meant to be. But just to your point about how, death in movies isn't gloried. She actually did get to die with all of her family all around her, and she got to say goodbye to everybody. And literally, we're all sitting in her living room, and she passed in her bed. And so
That's
this
good,
is
man.
obviously not the norm, but it does happen, and it still sucks just as fucking bad
Mhm.
as finding your dad in an apartment,
Yeah.
passed away. It's still really rough.
Yeah.
That's why I never judge anyone's levels of grief, because I feel like, people are like, I feel bad even talking about this after what you went through with your dad. And I'm like, don't. Like, grief is a very real thing, no matter what level it is, or no matter what the situation is, right? And it's funny because my best friend and I have had this conversation that, once you've been through something like the loss of a parent, at a younger age and things like that, it definitely does like almost numb you to a lot of other things, that might happen. But at the same time, I truly believe every person's level of grief is very real. And I think that as a society, we should never judge or say, oh, well, how can that person care about their friend's friend who passed away, and I went through what I went through. It's like, no, grief is grief, and a life is a life, right?
Right. Frank, you're muted.
Yep.
Hey, good call. Good call. I'm back. I am back. Oh shoot. No,
I thought that
I
was just a gnarly delay.
yeah, that was funny. No, man, I'm so glad Lauren's on. By the way, shout out to her for being our marketer and branding expert. That's why it's going to look a lot better than just a couple dudes and a couple of paint tools on your computer. So I do think it's good to have the emotional fortitude and intelligence to understand that everyone's different, and that, grief, even animals, I'm not the most animal person, but I know someone that attach a lot of emotion to dogs, and I don't understand it necessarily. I was kind of raised farm style, but even that, I mean, I try to give empathy to them when you see that they're upset in the clinic, like they just lost a cat or dog. Maybe they had no family, so that animal was the family. I don't know. I'm trying to expand my empathy as much as I can, because I am a stoic man, kind of.
I think you're right, though. You're right on point there. And I just think that we're in a very judgmental time for some reason, and it's like it needs to go the exact opposite direction, where people need to just be like, feel what you need to feel right now. And that goes back to this whole mental health reality of what we're going through and going to be going through for the next 10 plus years, just kind of PTSD from COVID in general and what people have gone through. So I think that we all just need to understand that empathy is key right now.
Everyone values things differently, and everyone processes hardship differently. So I think it's right in line with what Lauren's saying. You just got to realize that your neighbor is not the same as you.
Hey, Brandon, when you educate patients, this is how I used to preface like vaccines or even the mask. A lot of people say they don't want to wear it or do vaccines. They say that's fine. But I said, it's not really about you because you're 25 and healthy. It's about the older lady or the young kid that has comorbidities. It's about the kid that has leukemia, PCH, that can't get a virus because they won't make it. And I just think that like that answer is the most empathy. There's still people to this day. I went to a restaurant the other day. He just tried not to wear his mask. I go, why don't you just wear it? It's just like, you just want to like grab him and like, what are you doing? Like, you're causing more issue. Just wear it and have a heart. Like that
The amount
should
of
be the message.
videos that we've seen on YouTube of grown-ass men throwing tantrums in stores or Costco's or restaurants and getting literally escorted out by 3 or 4 security guards and screaming about their liberties is just, it's unbelievable.
And at the same time, they have TikTok. It's like, it's very hypocritical. I'm like, China knows everything about you, but you care about a mask in public, which, by the way, I think surgical masks have very productive things like social anxiety. I feel no anxiety going through the grocery store at all. No one's going to recognize me. No one's going to say hi. I just go get my, ground beef and get out.
I mean, I bought one from Nordstrom's the other day. It was cute. It's like a new fashion accessory, right? It's kind of part of my outfit now.
COVID forward.
It can hide the fact that I got a pixie cut when I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, see, there's positives.
That's another story.
There's positives. Or like on The
It's a weird
Bachelor, right?
topic.
On The Bachelor, maybe I'll get on someday. Like maybe first date you wear a mask, but the second you wear like a skinnier mask. And then the third one is when you really reveal yourself, right? Like, I don't know, maybe we can make this a game.
Or maybe it like stops people from like making out on the first date and they actually have to
Oh,
get to know
good.
each other.
Good call.
It's like a chastity belt.
That.
Under your tongue.
Did you know
See, we're finding the positives.
there was someone that said wear a mask during sexual relations? I thought it was a health thing. I don't know if maybe it was just Facebook, but I thought I
think
saw
that
it.
was
It's
an
like,
onion thing, man.
was
I
it just
think
like
that was the
a
Onion.
conspiracy? Oh, okay. The Onion. The Onion.
No.
It made me laugh.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Oh,
I
okay.
think they're trolling.
Oh, okay. It made me laugh though. I could picture like two people. I'm like, how was a baby made with masks? You know, like it just, I don't know. It just made me laugh.
Yeah, that's kind of weird to think about it. I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, other positions, I guess.
Honestly, actually, that opens up a really interesting topic because I have some friends who are single right now who are dating,
Oh,
like on Tinder and whatnot,
like
and
me?
it's like a whole nother
Like
level.
me?
Like usually, yeah, but are you actively dating? Like, are you
Me?
going out and seeing people? Because it's like it's so funny. Because
I mean,
she's like, okay, yeah, you check off all the lists, whatever. But the second thing is like, have you been anywhere in the last 14 days? Because I don't want to hang out with you.
I like you, but not that much.
It's a tough environment for dating a little bit, but I feel like if the Notebook, that, if he can get through war, get through Alzheimer's and still love his wife, I'm not going to let COVID stop love, and maybe this is the start of my Bachelor pitch, but I'll wear a mask to get to my table and get coffee and a drink, like, why not? You never know.
See, the real question was, how do you
Yeah,
date during a shutdown?
Teledates. I'm glad the podcast helps because I'm good with the communication, but maybe I don't know what to do with my hands, like Anchorman, or what was that, Ricky Bobby, where he doesn't know what to do with his hands.
Yeah. Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
Ran real good.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like maybe though, because Brandon and I were long distance for 1.5 years, pretty much right away in our relationship. So it's like,
wow.
you can do it. And actually, look at us. We're married now. Like, we actually got to know each other instead of like jumping straight into the physical stuff, like right away and not actually learning about each other. So
I think that's such a good point.
It kind of worked.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. Because, when you have the physical, so I used to lead my relationships from the ground up, if you can imagine, right? So, and now I'm starting to lead with my brain and my heart. So like, it's not just physical right away, right? I'm not searching for reality TV. I'm trying to find a life partner. So I'm trying to be like,
On the Bachelor.
yeah. And I'm trying to get on The Bachelor. So I'm a loving guy, right? Mike Johnson, trying to get him on. But, yeah, I think that is really important that you guys really get to build a friendship and like really understand like the pros and cons of each other. And 1.5 years long distance, that's a testament and why you guys are probably so happy and work well.
Yeah, and it's like we really know each other to the core, and I'm a big proponent of like person that you meet for the rest of you that you're going to be with for the rest of your life. You should have so many things in common with them and know their faults and love them regardless and not expect to change them, and all of these amazing things that you can only find out that is going to work if you actually talk to them instead of just getting all love struck and bubbly and into the physical side of what love can be. That comes, and honestly this is way TMI, but that it gets more intense and better the more in love you fall, right? And so it's like that is, to me, the key to a successful marriage almost is really that pre-period where you're getting to know that person.
I mean, you're putting in the groundwork, right?
Good.
You're writing an outline to the book. You're writing the brain map. You're doing all this stuff so that when you put the words on paper, it just naturally flows, right? You guys did the hard work, and now you have. I could just tell. I'm not the closest to you guys, but you guys are business partners. You guys are best friends. You're husband, wife. You're co-parents. I mean, just you are literally the partnership that everyone looks for, because neither one of you would mess that up, because you guys are each other's life. And I mean, that's what a relationship should be.
What's up with me, man?
Yeah, I mean, it puts up with Brandon. I mean, God, dude, how many hats does he have? I don't know.
We play this game called Hat and Go Seek. If you're talking about actual hats.
No, I think at this point he's talking about business type hats with all the
okay,
crap
'cause
we've
I was
done.
like, he
But
needs
I have
hats.
actually probably dozens of like physical hats.
That's what I was
leave them
meaning.
all over
That's
the
what I was
house, and it
meaning.
drives her fucking crazy.
I was
Yeah,
like, how many
I call it
Brandon
Hat and
hats
Go
do you have
Seek.
everywhere?
I call it Hat and Go Seek. Throughout, I'm cleaning up at the end of the day, and I'm like, hat, 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 hat. Usually it's like shoes. No, well, it's shoes too.
Shoes too. Yeah.
I'm going to come over and just
That's
throw
what I'm
like
saying,
random
dude.
teams. Like I'm going to throw like Atlanta Braves in the corner, and then throw like the Pittsburgh Steelers in the corner, and just throw you off and be like, whose hat is that?
Spurs
Brandon
and
switched
Lakers
teams?
are not allowed. Anyone else can.
Spurs and
The
Lakers.
You
That's
guys are
funny.
not allowed.
Oh man, I can't
But
wait to
it's very
throw.
true though. Back on the back on the topic, it's very true that like that groundwork is everything, and I think that that's something people could grasp onto with COVID. Is like, hey, let's do a teledate, let's talk on the phone, let's get to know each other. Not only will it help you avoid catfishing, I guess, because you'll know what you're getting.
This
Yeah,
was quite the
it's-
detour we took.
It is
I'm
quite the
sorry,
detour.
but
But if we wrap it together,
Sorry.
I think we talked a lot about death. I think something that's really important is like life. So, when we have death, we also have life, right? And we have birth, and we have kids growing up. We still have innocent kids that like need that good environment. We still have like a reason for relationships to maybe rekindle. How many marriages have neglected each other, not on purpose. It's just that we were so busy prior to COVID. Now it's the time to be like, hey, look, this is why we fell in love. This is why I still love you. What can we do to build our relationship and family even stronger?
And I think, Frank, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but one of my favorite lines ever in any movie comes from Step Brothers. And I think it was even one of the outtakes, like that wasn't even used in the actual movie proper. It's when Dale's dad does the whole speech about never losing your dinosaur. Do you remember that?
I think I do. I wasn't the biggest
I
Step
love
Brothers
that one.
fan, but
So-
yeah.
So essentially he says when he was a boy, he wanted to be a dinosaur. That was his childhood dream. And of course, Brennan and Dale are like, well, you're a man. You can't be a dinosaur. And he would reenact all the things he did as a dinosaur. And then he realized one day he had to grow up and be an adult. And he was sad that he lost his dinosaur, which was his childhood dream, and was urging Brennan and Dale to pursue their dreams. And I think it was the music entertainment business as their childhood dreams or their dinosaur. So when we're talking about living life, for some reason, that is always the first thing I think of is never lose your dinosaur. As ridiculous as that sounds.
No, like we brought that up at the beginning, was like how many people stop dreaming and imagining. Like those are the happiest people, because that's all kids do. They don't know how to run a budget. They don't know how to do chores all the time. All they're doing is living in this imagination. And I'm sure you see that with your daughters. Like it's got to be so like delightful to see them. Like they don't know COVID's going on. It hasn't changed for them. They're just living, and they're like, they may wear a mask and just be like whatever, but they're still going to play around, have imagination. I think adults like need to remember some of that, because we stick too much to, I don't know, the news, I guess, or other things that bring us down.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting though, because I really have seen like a lot of my friends really become very innovative, and you're right. They've taken their dreams and made them a reality, because I feel like COVID was very much a reality check for people to say like, how can I improve my life? How can I, like, when you're stuck to think and you're stuck in your house and you're just thinking and dwelling, like, you either innovate or you struggle, or you become closer with your family, or the opposite, right? So like, you have to, this is going to have an interesting effect on families and people in general, but we've seen our friends really innovate and step up. And we innovate, and I think we've gotten closer, so I think it can go either way. And I'm,
And I think you saw that, what we just did there, that's an innovated high five when you're sitting next to each other. You don't have to turn into a weird high five. It's just minimal energy exertion there.
Yes, it's also probably good for COVID, because you don't actually.
Oh yeah,
like,
back of the
touch
hand.
people's
Yeah,
hands.
that's good.
Anyway.
Yeah, COVID safe. COVID safe.
Yeah.
Man, this is a good podcast. This is a good one. I'm so glad Lauren just hopped on like no biggie. Like, hey, she's just one of the dudes, one of the dudettes.
Well, it's interesting too because she rarely talks about her dad. So obviously, when it first happened, we talked about it a lot, and kind of since then, she really hasn't, I guess, dived deep into kind of some of these feelings and the regrets she has and that sort of stuff. So I think this is good for her.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't want to, because I'm very open about emotions, and I'm a very huge proponent that we should all be open about things we've been through. We only learn from it. But I think it's just no one ever asks, except for, the people I tell, but no, I don't have those conversations often.
Yeah.
I think these are the conversations people are dying for, though, and they're the conversations we're willing to have because, I lost someone recently, and I think one of the first things I want to do is talk to people I care about. I care about all three of you, and it's just nice to be able to hear like some positive feedback we get from the show, and then maybe it gives them an example or a reason to talk about their grief, right? A lot of people don't grieve; they substitute grief for, I don't know, whether it's medications, right? We push medications now for grief, which is kind of sad. We push, drugs, alcohol, other types of highs or substitutions instead of like actually grieving.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right that, you can turn to things to try to silence it, right? And that's where alcohol abuse and drug abuse and all of those things come into play.
Self-medication.
And instead of self-reflecting. So yeah, I think being open about mental health and letting it be okay. And here's my marketing plug. That's why I love your podcast, because I feel like, especially men, and you said this in another one of your podcasts, they feel like it's not okay to be vulnerable. It's not okay to talk about the fact that they've been stuck in their apartment and they're depressed. It's not okay to, all of these things. And I think that men especially, and women, all need to know that it's okay to reach out. It's okay to talk to people, and it's okay to be vulnerable right now, especially now in what everyone's going through right now.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said again. Lauren, I think Lauren speaks better than Brandon. Is she our?
Oh yeah, like it's not even close. Yeah. I get a thought and like 6,000 words tumble out of my mouth, and it's only like sometimes coherent, and then
Brandon's the color commentator.
Another half dozen words.
Yeah, dude.
Am I the new addition to Just a Couple Dudes?
Yeah, welcome on board.
I can be a dude.
Yeah, you're a dudette. You're a dude.
Does that mean in like the last 4 podcasts we invited Russ on and now Lauren? So I guess there's 5 of us now.
Yeah, I know, right? We're gonna have just a family of dudes.
Instead of bringing on guests, we just talk to each other.
That's what we normally do.
Yeah.
Sometimes these are the best episodes, though. People really don't always want guests, so because there's no agenda. It's just really about us talking about our life. We've had that in the past because I don't know, like when I listen to podcasts too, it's the real conversations I crave. I mean, I think the best reality TV is reality. Like it's not on TV.
Or The Bachelor.
Yeah, well,
Survivor.
other than Survivor and The Bachelor, shout out to 2 contestants here that we're ready.
Well, hey, I think
Eric,
that's a
why
good.
aren't you on a reality show yet?
A reality show? I know. I don't even know which one I'd be on. I'd kind of want to be on one of those cooking shows.
Can you be on The Lava Show? The Lava Show on Netflix?
The Lava? I don't even know what that one is.
You haven't seen that one? The Lava one? Like Escape the Lava or something?
I just
like
want Gordon Ramsay.
No, it's the Florida Lava.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or like, or what's his name? John Tafferty or Sean Tafferty? The guy who goes to restaurants and he tells them that like he's like everything's wrong and he just tells them how to make their restaurant better.
Don't you need to own a restaurant though to
I'll
the stream?
I'll do like a lemonade stand. I don't know. I just want him to yell at me. It would be fun.
I think it's a great time to open a restaurant, I've heard.
Yeah.
There's a new sale for restaurants with 50% being shut down. So I don't know. I'm trying to be positive here. Commercial real estate's going down. So
hey, I put on Facebook. I got a really good business plan. It's just everyone coming together, watching movies together. We'll serve some popcorn and some soda. I think people are really craving that.
we could call it a theater.
Yeah.
It's actually an airplane themed restaurant. You take an old airplane, you serve the food in there,
of like the airplane food?
Yeah, the airplane food.
Like the little individual gross.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. and you just pack as many people in there as you can.
But if it's an airplane, you're going to have to drag someone out, because that's all I see on Facebook is they have to drag someone out for not following directions or something. That's all I know.
Knock you out cold.
I'm always waiting for that on a plane ride.
You know, guys,
like, who's that person?
I'm not gonna lie. I get a little frustrated even when someone's wearing a mask and they are just hacking up a storm, and you're like, "Get out of here! What are you doing in public right now?" Like
that or someone has bowel issues, and
So
it doesn't matter how much they flush, they get that tight area. You can't get rid of that smell. You'd have to like put the back end, and it's like, why'd you eat vegan food this morning? Like, what was going on here?
I haven't been on a plane in a long time. Have you guys been on a plane during the COVID stuff? No. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how is it empty or is it not empty? Is it still packed?
We're supposed to go in 5 weeks to my best friend from high school, who we're going to have on here as a guest coming up, his wedding, which I don't think we're going to go, which kind of is a bummer because he was one of my groomsmen. But
it might be that person on the airplane that's just like wrapped in bubble wrap and
you have
has like
face
straws
shield,
in
get a hazmat
the
suit
nostrils.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll
Just
see.
steal some stuff from the hospital. Get that good quality stuff.
We just wear that like paper yellow shit, right? With these like masks we have to reuse. Like, we don't have the good stuff.
Yeah. You know who
It's
has
not like a
better
movie?
stuff? Painters. You know who has better stuff? Painters. I look at patients all the time. Like, you have a better mask than me, man. Like, you have better safety glasses than me. Like, what's going on?
Or schools now. We're getting shipments of all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, good for you guys. I'm so glad that you guys have, I just walk in with my blue light blockers on and my regular surgical mask and hold my breath. That's what I do.
Yeah.
You hold your breath your whole shift.
It only works for a few minutes.
Yeah, I know.
Then he leaves and goes on a podcast.
Yeah, I know. That is true. That was nice.
Frank did an entire podcast with me a few nights ago and only missed about the last 45 seconds.
Well, isn't that cool? Like, that's talking about utilizing your time.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, I'll come on. Well, we have a bunch to shout out to because we have so much going on now. We have the Jacked store, www.jackedpod.com. Thanks to Brandon getting the shirt up there. What is it called? Rona? What is it called?
So
How to Rona?
a guest that we're going to have on in a couple of weeks, his name is Dr. Steve Sample, was on MSNBC after the Axios interview with Trump about reading the manual on the coronavirus. And not to say anything ill about our president, but he then Dr. Sample, that is, went on MSNBC with Brian Williams and had a fake manual, and it was called How to Rona by Science. So we're having him on in a couple weeks. So we made some shirts in his honor. We're donating the proceeds to St. Jude's. So if you're interested, you can hop on and buy one.
And I think we're already at 40 plus shirts, Brandon? Like today?
60 plus.
Oh, wow. So day one, not even a full day, we're at 60 plus shirts, our first shirt. And a lot of the proceeds. Yeah, a lot of the proceeds go to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So, I mean, that's an amazing thing. Like we're walking the walk, what our podcast is about. Again, none of us are getting paid from this. We're taking out of our free time. Brandon's very busy. Eric is saving the students out there right now on the front lines more than me and Brandon. Like, I can't imagine being in the school environment right now. And then you have Lauren, that's a mom. She's our marketer, a brander, and she's holding the freaking team together, behind the scenes. So everyone's busy. We haven't made a dime from this, but we are already giving back, which seriously, like, fills my heart up.
And apparently we have an intern now.
Oh yeah, dude. So we have an intern. I had a guy reach out to me in the Air Force. His son just graduated school, and he's like, hey, I got this guy that's looking for a project. A lot of guys that are website designers, they try to build their resume. I said, hey man, look, if you get on this is a great project. Low expectations. We're here to help you. We're not going to abuse or use you. We want you to get something out of this too, so we can promote you and your work. And the mission is something that everyone can agree on. I haven't heard one person not agree with pushing good role models, which is not only men now, it's going to be women like Lauren. and just bringing people together and bringing some positive information, and then also giving back to these awesome organizations. So follow us on Twitter, Jackpod. We are very avid Suns fans. You'll see that from me and Brandon because we're both involved. You'll see us on the just a couple things.
Nash, though,
Yeah, I feel bad for Nash. He got dogged again. And then the YouTube channel, which we have like 13 subscribers. I want that at 100 real fast. And then we have Instagram, Facebook, which we're very involved with. So I think in the next 6 months, I mean, we're going to see some big changes. That this vision and mission that Eric and I started originally, just kind of just two dudes, and then now we have like a family of dudes. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to land this one, I guess. And so like Frank said, go ahead and check us out on jackpod.com, JAKDPOD.com, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the platforms. Brandon and Frank are super active on Twitter. So if you go ahead and message us on Twitter, you'll get a response too. And Brandon, do you have any closing statements?
No, I've just it's been really fun hopping on here over the last few weeks and getting this ball rolling. I really enjoy the message, and I've enjoyed just kind of chatting with you guys, and I hope that we can kind of spread this message. It's been, I think, kind of a fantastic little run we're on.
Big time.
Yeah,
man.
we had Brandon for like 2 weeks. We already have a T-shirt. I mean, Brandon, like, I don't know what he is, if he worked on the red carpet prior.
Twitter.
Like, and we have a Twitter really fast. I never wanted one, and I love Twitter. I am just like, that's my favorite app right now because I'm so jazzed about it. I do have a quote real quick. Can we end it with that?
Go for it. Yep.
So I looked this up earlier. It says, the value of life is not in the length of days, but in the use we make of them. And that was Michael de Montaigne, Lord of Montaigne, a great French philosopher from the 1500s. So I just think of like what that guy was thinking about back then. That's before TikTok. That's before iPhone 11 Max. And he's still having these deep thoughts. And there was people like that back then. So
I like that. That's a good one. Daddy quotes.
I love them.
Frank always got the quotes.
But all right, guys. So we'll see you later for another episode of Just a Couple Dudes.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to another can't miss episode of Just a Couple Dudes or Jacked Podcast. We're new on Twitter, so please give us a follow at JAKDpod. On Instagram, you can follow us at JAKD_podcast, and we have a new YouTube channel set up at Just a Couple Dudes, and that's couple with a K. We also have a website, jakdpod.com, with a new store set up where you can check out our merch and other fun items that we're going to be putting up. So please give us a follow, check out our website, and tune in for the next podcast that we'll be releasing shortly. Thanks.